Jude then asked if the plan was going well. Cordelia said that she had managed to recruit a total of 4 magicians, and because the leader of the demon's hand they were going to face used ice magic, Cordelia also recruited a very skilled fire magician named Ronan. Jude and the Blue Lion Knights had destroyed 7 demon's hand bases. They had managed to destroy more than half of them, because based on the storyline of the game, there should be 12 bases. Jude did not continue to destroy the other demon's hand bases because he realized the danger. They then discussed their next plan. Jude said that he had to prepare something before the social gathering, because there was the most important thing he needed to do on the day of the social gathering, which was to protect the targets targeted by the demon's hand, which were Cordelia and one other main character, Lucas Riesfelger. The scene is then shown when Baron Edgar, a longtime follower of the demon's hand, is worried because of the destruction of 7 bases overnight. He then scolds his subordinates for this. His subordinates apologize and they are still finding out what the cause is. Baron Edgar scolds again because even if they know the cause, it is now too late. He feels that the Blue Lion Knight troops may have learned the remaining locations of the other bases. The man behind him said that it didn't matter. He was minus, a half-man half-demon. That is someone who accepts demons into his body. He then confirmed, based on reports Cordelia Chase had arrived in Langhist, and the other target Lucas Riesfelger would arrive in Langhist tomorrow. So the plan didn't need to be changed. In 2 days they would kidnap one of them. Then they would summon a demon into this kingdom. The next afternoon when the social gathering was taking place, Jude and Cordelia had been dressed up by their maid. They looked very handsome and beautiful at the moment. Jude then offered Cordelia to hold his hand, and set off for the social gathering. Social gathering, it's easy to imagine that this is a small event based on its name. In fact it's a large event that contains the children of the 12 northern clans, because the event is quite large. Many people attend, including influential figures from Langhist or those renowned in high society and those who want to make connections with the 12 northern clans. Will all attend this event. Because of this, seeing whether they get an invitation or not can change their judgment in high society. That's how big the influence of this social gathering is, and that also shows how important this gathering is. When they arrived there, Jude then reminded Cordelia of their plans. When they had just arrived at the social gathering, they were talked about and stared at by many people and thought that they were a good match. Cordelia was then greeted by Sylvia, the daughter of the Crossbell family who was famous for her extraordinary talent. She was now also together with Viola, the youngest daughter of the Viscount Lang family who was a little shy. The 3 of them were old friends. Sylvia then asked about who the person beside her was. Jude then introduced himself. Sylvia used to be curious about what Cordelia's fiancé looked like, but now they finally got to meet. Sylvia's face could be said to be as beautiful as Cordelia, but even so Jude really didn't feel any feelings. It was like he was meeting a celebrity or something. Jude also wondered why he wasn't tempted when he saw Sylvia, but he later realized that it was probably because he was used to seeing Cordelia. Then someone came. He introduced himself as Lucas Riesfelger, the host of this event. He welcomed them and thanked them for attending this social gathering. As a person who has an extraordinary talent in the field of swordsmanship, and is also the son of Count Riesfelger, the leader of the 12 northern clans, Lucas has the concept of becoming stronger every day. In fact, he loves the process of becoming stronger. That's why when he comes to others, he looks at whether this person is strong or not. If it was the real Jude, who could not learn martial arts because of his disease, it would only be someone he respected, nothing more than that. But the Jude now is not like the Jude in the game. Jude Bayer, Cordelia Chase, and Lucas Riesfelger, there is an unbreakable connection between these 3 people. That is, they are all playable characters in Legend of Heroes 2. And among them, Jude and Cordelia have confirmed that they have memories of their previous lives. Jude then wondered if Lucas was also like them, like whether he was the reincarnation of the top 3 in the server ranking. So Jude then confirmed it without arousing suspicion. Lucas was confused by Jude's sudden behavior. Jude was a little embarrassed at this time. He then apologized for his sudden behavior on the pretext that his disease had not fully recovered. Lucas did not mind this, and hoped that his disease would recover quickly. Jude then excused himself to leave. Cordelia then mocked him for his embarrassing behavior. Jude wasn't sure if this was good or bad. Just like when he first saw Yellow Strom in the Pleiades, he didn't feel anything strange at the time. And seeing Lucas' reaction earlier, he was sure that Lucas must have thought his behavior was strange, but because of that, he now knew that Lucas had no memory of the rank 3 player. If a character like Lucas had memories of when he played Legend of Heroes 2, he would have been a great help in the upcoming event of defeating the demon's hand, so Jude really regretted that. But still there was no guarantee that he would be the same as Jude and Cordelia. Jude also didn't know if he wanted to cooperate with them. Since they already changed a lot of the plot from the original, it might be better that they have less factors to worry that. Cordelia then said that she actually didn't really like the character Lucas. Jude was confused to hear this. She then said that her favorite character was Cordelia. Because at that time she wanted to finish all the characters, so she had played Lucas too. After seeing the story, she realized that she didn't really like playing Lucas, because in the story Cordelia was the one who ended up being kidnapped by the demon's hand. After that Cordelia then reappeared as an enemy. Jude was a little confused by this reasoning, because after all, Lucas was the main character. It was different if she chose the character Cordelia, who ended up becoming a demonkin and then an enemy was Lucas. Cordelia knew that, but in another story, they were both brainwashed and then made into sacrifices. In that story, Cordelia and Lucas were enemies. Many people had gotten game over, thanks to Lucas the demonkin. That's why many players didn't like Lucas, because Cordelia was their favorite character. And another thing, Cordelia remembers when Lucas was played by Romantic Cat. She was always walking around wearing very cute clothes. Every time Cordelia thinks about it, it feels like her head is about to burst. Cordelia then saw Ronan, a magician she had managed to invite from Crimson Dawn Tower. Ronan was with two people Cordelia had never seen before, but she guessed that the two people might be the magician invited by Ronan, plus the 3 magicians she had recruited earlier. The total number of magicians who came to the social gathering from Crimson Dawn Tower was 6. In addition to the knights sent by Barua, as well as the bodyguards of the 12 clans, there were more than 30, so compared to the original story, the security of this gathering was quite strong. They now just had to wait until those people came to attack, but there was no guarantee that they would attack at the same place and time, so they had to stay alert. Jude suggested greeting the others while staying near Lucas. Cordelia was then shown to be annoyed with someone who had a strange relationship with Sylvia. At first Jude was curious about who the person was who could make Sylvia make that face. It turned out to be the Felix Duran of the Marquis Duran family. He was the eldest among the children of the 12 clans present today. Cordelia then moved towards them. Apart from Lucas and Cordelia, the other descendants of the 12 clans had little bearing on the story, whether they lived or died, but Jude was still determined to save them all. The scene was then shown when it was time for them to dance. Jude then saw Maya and Delia who suddenly entered here, and based on their gaze, Jude and Cordelia understood that they were told to dance. The guests who came to this gathering were teenagers, and most of them certainly had ideas about dating, but they were all at least still at the friendship stage. But the dance between Jude and Cordelia was a dance between 2 engaged couples. Resigned to this situation, Jude then invited Cordelia to dance together, although Cordelia was reluctant about it, but she then accepted Jude's invitation. Cordelia then asked if Jude could dance. Jude said that his talent for having 9 yin-blocked pathways made him able to do everything that used his body. Jude then pulled Cordelia closer. Cordelia was surprised by Jude's sudden movements, but right before they could dance, an explosion suddenly occurred near them. It was certainly the work of the demon's hand. Minos then immediately came to Lucas who was with Sylvia. Lucas realized that his current arsenal was incomplete, so to defeat Minos directly was impossible. So while he was distracted, Lucas told Sylvia to find an opening and leave immediately. Sylvia could only be surprised to hear that. Minos was then about to attack them both, but before he could even launch an attack, he was first attacked from behind by Ronan using fire magic. Cordelia then came and asked Sylvia to leave now. Cordelia also asked Lucas to leave, but Lucas refused, because as a knight he could not leave his enemy and then run away. Cordelia then immediately scolded him for his behavior. Lucas would not be able to do anything without a weapon in his hand in a battle between magicians. Cordelia then reminded him of when Minos first appeared, whose name he said. Until finally Lucas then wanted to be invited to leave there. Jude and Cordelia then led them. But while still on the way Jude suddenly saw Maya who was about to be attacked from behind. But fortunately Delia arrived quickly to protect Maya. Delia then asked Jude to take Cordelia out of there and said that they would catch up. Jude understood. He then took them out of there. Jude then felt that the fighting power of the demon's hand was weakening. If this battle went like in the game, Minos would appear at the end as the leader of this attack. But since he had appeared from the beginning, it was already proof that the end of this battle was on their side. Jude then saw Minos' eyes which seemed not to accept that they had escaped from his grasp. Jude then led them to the hallway next to the stairs. Sylvia was confused about where they were now and why there was a door in the gap in the wall. Cordelia only said that Jude had found this secret room, and told them to enter first. There was already a large magic circle carved into the floor and a wand. Sylvia then asked about it, but Cordelia didn't have time to explain and asked her to hide in the basement. Since Sylvia was not an important target, she should be fine if she hid here. After Sylvia hid, Lucas suddenly said that he was going back to the party room. He had now found a weapon that he could use, and as a knight, Lucas did not want to hide here, and if it was true that he was the target, he felt that they would be safer if he separated from them. Cordelia then told him to be quiet, accompanied by a silent spell. Cordelia explained that they ran here not because they were scared, but this was an emergency with their lives at stake. Jude then replied that the silver-haired man he saw earlier was someone who was willing to accept demons into his body, and his goal was to either kidnap him or Cordelia. If he managed to defeat the magician who was blocking his way, he would definitely immediately investigate their trail, so they had to be prepared for that. The scene was then shown when Minus had defeated Ronan. They seemed to have had a fierce battle that made Minus' mask break. And as Jude had expected, Minus then immediately searched for their trail, and after a while, Minus finally found where they were hiding. He then used his ice magic to open the door to their hiding place. Jude then said that as long as they held Minus for 3 minutes, they could win, and right after Minus entered, he was immediately bombarded with various attacks, but the attacks did not cause him any harm at all. Jude realized that he could not hurt him at all using low-level magic. But Jude didn't mind that as long as Minus got in here. And just as Minus stepped on the floor that had been engraved with Valentin's magic circle, Cordelia then immediately activated it. Minus was surprised when he was suddenly chained, even though they had managed to hold Minus, but Cordelia was now having trouble even standing up. The only thing that was maintaining Valentin's magic circle was her magic power, and she could only hold it for a few more seconds. It was short, but she felt that it was enough for Jude to take advantage of it. Jude then rushed towards Minus, but as Jude got closer to him, Jude felt yin energy radiating out, but it didn't really matter to him because he was used to yin energy, and had the necklace of the sun. Jude then attacked Minus using the lighting punch. Lucas was impressed by Jude's amazing attack. Minus must have been weakened by Valentin's magic circle. He must also still be recovering after the fight with Ronan. So Jude was surprised when he saw Minus, who could still stand up. Jude knew that he could not retreat here. He then punched him again. But Jude's fist was surprisingly held by Minus, and while Minus was casting an attack spell, Cordelia then told Lucas to attack him. Hearing that, Lucas then immediately slashed at Minus. His sword was currently emitting white light. It was an ancient sword technique that had only been passed down in the direct lineage of the Riesfelger family, a sword technique inspired by the sword of Holy King Graham, who had cut down 5 great demons. A holy light that had the power to kill demons. Holy King's Cross, first form, Holy Sword. Lucas' attack was able to withstand the attack magic from Minus, but Cordelia's current condition was very worrying. Her heart was pounding, and her vision was blurred. It felt like she had been hit by a big hammer. The mana consumption was bigger than she expected. Jude then called Cordelia. Was she okay? Cordelia said that she couldn't hold it anymore. Jude knew that, then asked if Cordelia could still do it. Cordelia said that she could, but it might be destroyed. They knew that was the only chance they had. Therefore Cordelia decided to do it. Even though they had Minus' body restrained, but Lucas still found it difficult to deal with him. He wondered if his magic was endless. Lucas knew that he couldn't give up here. If what Jude said earlier was true, then he couldn't let Minus out of the magic circle. There was only one chance. Jude was getting ready to attack, and when Minus' breathing turned unstable, Cordelia thought there was no point in her keeping the moonlight wand. After all, it was just an item. If she failed here, one of her and Lucas would turn into a demonkin. The problem was that her vision was now blurred, so he couldn't lock onto the target properly. Therefore she would rely more on her hearing and instincts, and when Lucas had managed to injure Minus, Minus realized that the chain holding him was now broken. But Cordelia had already cast a spell with her wand. Moonlight then came out of the moonlight wand. Minus then watched as the moonlight was absorbed by the necklace of the sun. Cordelia said there was no point in Minus fighting back. This was the result of the combined magical power of the moonlight that had been stored for over 100 years, and the sacred artifact that contained the power of the sun god, Solari. Jude likened it to if they were using a normal sword before, then now they were like using a lightsaber. Minus realized that the light was dangerous for him. He had to get out of this room, but Jude then used the grease spell. This successfully made Minus fall. Jude then used 36 world steps to move towards Minus. And right when Jude arrived in front of him, he then punched Minus using the strengthened necklace of the sun. Jude's attack made Minus fall and crack the ground, but that was still not enough to defeat him. Minus then got up and was about to attack Jude. Jude thought whether they really couldn't win against him? Demonkin Minus was created only to defeat players, a creature that never showed its end to anyone. And when Minus' attack was about to hit Jude, his hand was suddenly cut off. He was confused by this. Jude then said that he hadn't lost, that he just needed to replenish magic energy. Minus panicked at this. Jude then attacked him again using the necklace of the sun. Jude's attack successfully killed Demonkin Minus. Finally their battle was over. Jude then saw Cordelia, who had passed out, and when he was about to go to her he suddenly lost consciousness. And right before he lost consciousness, Jude got a notification saying that he had successfully earned the title of the one who makes the impossible possible, and all his stats increased by 5%. The scene was then shown when Jude woke up while calling Cordelia. Maya, who was beside him, was moved to see it, and was happy that Jude finally woke up. She then asked about his body condition. Jude said his body was a little stiff, but he didn't feel pain anywhere, so he told Maya not to worry. Jude also asked if Maya was injured. Thanks to Dahlia's protection, Maya was now fine. She wanted to see her to thank her. Jude then asked if Maya had slept because she looked pale. Maya said that it was her duty to take care of Jude, and she was grateful that Jude was okay. Jude also asked about the other news. Lucas, who was with him, had been sent to the hospital, while Cordelia, who was also unconscious, had been sent to her villa after receiving first aid. The doctor said Cordelia was just tired. Both of them should be able to recover quickly. There were also many people who were injured during the social gathering, but most of the people who invaded the social gathering had already been arrested. The magician and knights handled the situation. Jude was happy to listen to her. Maya then suddenly held her hand. Jude was confused to see that. Maya said that Cordelia was now also still lying on her bed, but Cordelia had just regained consciousness. So Maya asked if Jude wanted to visit her. Jude knew that he couldn't say no here. He also needed to see Cordelia's condition. So Jude accepted Maya's invitation. And while on the way, Jude felt like he was forgetting something. Arriving there, Delia and Maya said that they would wait outside and invited Jude to enter. Jude then saw Cordelia's corpse-like state. Jude then asked if she was okay. She seemed to still have the energy to joke. Jude was grateful that she was okay. Cordelia said that when she tried to get out of bed, she fell down because of dizziness. It was because she used too much mana. Her head was also hurting right now. Jude then asked if her current state was similar to that of a drunk. Cordelia wasn't sure about that because she didn't seem to have been drunk before. The Manhwa didn't specify Yellow Strom's age, but the fandom wiki explained that in Cordelia's previous life as Yellow Strom she was only 19 years old, and in Korea, one is legal to drink alcoholic beverages when they turn 19, so Yellow Strom might not have had a chance to drink it before being transmigrated here. Back to the story, Jude then asked if Cordelia heard the notification when she almost passed out. Cordelia thought she was delusional when she got the title, but she didn't expect that Jude got it too. Cordelia was very happy to know that, because if this had happened in the game, the whole community would have been in an uproar. Just thinking about it made her feel better. Jude felt that Cordelia was now no longer fussy about him taking the last hit. Cordelia said that it didn't matter now, because they had saved them all, including Delia and her old friends, in total maybe more than 30 people. Ronan might be a little injured, but his life was not in danger, and she heard that not many people were seriously injured among the Guardian Knights. Cordelia felt they were one step closer to the perfect ending, happy ending. Jude then patted Cordelia on the head. Cordelia was certainly annoyed by that and told him to stop, but Jude said that he was too proud of her and couldn't help it. They were grateful that they could get through this difficulty. Cordelia then asked Jude about his next plan. Jude planned to keep following Cordelia's main scenario, so they had to go to the forest where Cordelia had escaped from the demon's hand. Jude also planned to go to the northern border after that, because there was a cure for the 9-Blocktian pathway disease there. The northern border is Count Riesfeld's territory, therefore they need Lucas's help. They then realize something about Sylvia, who is still trapped in the hideout. The scene is then shown when the two of them have managed to get Sylvia out. Sylvia is crying about why they forgot about her. Cordelia apologizes for that. There is also Lucas. They meet at the entrance. The situation at that time was very chaotic, so Jude had forgotten Sylvia's situation. Sylvia was scared, because it was very dark and no sound could be heard from outside. Her voice asking for help was not even heard. Cordelia apologized again. Jude felt guilty because he put a magic circle that blocked the sound there to keep watch. Sylvia was then brought back by the knight assigned by Count Crossbell. Cordelia then scolded Lucas because at that time he was still conscious and why he didn't get Sylvia out. Lucas apologized about that, because he was hit by the silent spell, so he couldn't tell the guards that Sylvia was there. He was immediately dragged to the hospital by the Guardian Knights. Delia also apologized for not immediately telling the two of them that Sylvia had disappeared. Cordelia said that it was not her fault, but this was all Lucas' fault. Cordelia seemed to really hate Lucas. Jude thinks that he should stop her, because they need Lucas' help to get to the northern border. Their relationship must not deteriorate here. Jude then asked Lucas about his wound, because he received an attack from a demonkin directly. Jude felt that his wound must be bad. Lucas said that he was fine now because it had been healed by healing magic, but Jude advised Lucas to go back to his room and rest. Lucas then said that he actually had a question for Jude. Jude was confused by that. Lucas then went back to confirm about Jude, who had not been able to heal his disease. He was impressed that even with a body like that Jude could do martial arts that great. He asked if Jude could be healed, how strong he would be. Lucas then told him that on the northern border of the Count Riesfelger region, behind the border was a very cold snowy land, there was a way to heal the 9-Blockdian pathway. Although Jude already knew about it, he still pretended to be touched and thanked him. Jude also asked why he was doing this for him. Lucas said it was because he felt Jude was worthy of being his rival, although it was a little embarrassing to say. He had never met a kid his age who could fight him equally. Jude was surprised when Lucas said that just like that. Lucas then continued, people might think it was a good thing, but he always felt lonely because of that. That's why he always wished there was an opponent who was worthy of him, who could train to become strong together. Although Jude felt that it was very cringe, he still said that it was an honor for him that Lucas had considered him as a rival. Lucas knew that this was very sudden, but he hoped to hear Jude's answer during the meeting tomorrow afternoon. Jude was confused about the meeting tomorrow afternoon. Delia then realized this. She forgot to tell the two of them because they had just woken up. They decided, before all the additional guard from the 12 families came to Langhast, they would stay here, because there might be another attack later. The meeting that Lucas said earlier was a meeting that focused on the attack incident, because several people were injured because of this incident. Plus those who came to this meeting were children who were still minors. There were several people who were still traumatized by it. This meeting was proposed by the Blue Lion Night Order, and was held tomorrow afternoon. To let everyone rest first, Lucas said that they also needed to explain their battle with the Demonkin. Therefore Jude should also come. Jude then understood and would give an answer to Lucas' suggestion tomorrow afternoon, after which Lucas excused himself. Jude thought that he was very lucky. Cordelia then asked why he seemed to be hesitating when he was going to go there too. Jude said that he had to look like he was thinking about it seriously, knowing that Lucas really wanted rival. Lucas must have been very nervous earlier because he was afraid that Jude would reject him. They then discussed the meeting. The meeting would definitely be about them defeating Minus. Even though Lucas helped, Minus was someone that the three of them could not defeat. Cordelia then suggested that they just say that Minus was exhausted and became weak after fighting Ronan, although it could be that. But about the fake document, Cordelia said that she had burned it because she was nervous about holding it. Jude didn't mind that. He had sold his father's name this time, so it seemed he had to use his trump card here. Here it was not explained what the trump card was. Jude then asked if his head was not dizzy anymore and did not go back to rest. Cordelia said that his head was still quite heavy, but sitting like this was enough for him. Cordelia then asked what he was doing when he activated the magic circle. Jude was confused by the question. Cordelia said that it was indeed the magic circle on the glove. Jude should have snapped his fingers like the flame alchemist in Full Metal Alchemist. Cordelia also asked about what else they were going to say, something that could be troublesome later. Jude realized that Cordelia was feeling anxious at the moment. Jude then asked if she was feeling anxious. Cordelia said that it wasn't anxious, but she remembered that it was difficult for them to win against Minus. Her body was currently tired but her eyes didn't want to sleep. Jude knew that feeling. Another thing that followed after completing something dangerous was the anxiety of what was to come. Although it was difficult, they could defeat it together, but in the end, Minus was just the first boss. There was no guarantee that the next incident would go smoothly. Jude felt that this was not enough. If they wanted to stop the destruction of the Pleiades, he had to make a more perfect plan, and had to become stronger. Cordelia felt that they were thinking the same thing, although Jude felt that they weren't. Cordelia said that that was all she was worried about. After all, they were the former number 1 and 2, so there was nothing to worry about. Cordelia then just thought about who would come from their main residence. Jude thought that it might be a high-level night. The scene was then shown when Count Chase along with Gale Bayer were hunting Baron Edgar. At 8 p.m. in the meeting room, Jude then told that he had met the Fairy Queen. Barua was confused to hear this, because he only asked about his fight against the Demonkin. Jude knew that this was all confusing, so he asked everyone to hear it first. In the middle of their journey to Langhast, he and Cordelia spent some time together at the river in the forest. It was a beautiful night, a night accompanied by moonlight. Of course, the sight that amazed him the most was when he saw Cordelia smiling under the moonlight, but he wasn't the only one who was amazed by Cordelia's beauty. When he left the place for a while, 2 little fairies suddenly came out of nowhere. Then they approached Cordelia to invite her to a party organized by the Fairy Queen, and because Cordelia was kind-hearted, she didn't feel like refusing their invitation. But suddenly a bicorn appeared and attacked the 2 fairies. The whole room was surprised when they heard the sudden appearance of the bicorn. Jude then continued. It seemed that the bicorn had often disturbed the fairies there before. Jude then continued to tell a long story. And in the end, thanks to the help of the Fairy Queen, they managed to defeat the Demonkin. After hearing Jude's story, Barua then asked if fairies only existed in fairy tales. Jude did not answer the question, and instead took out the bicorn horn and moonlight wand. The magicians there were surprised to see this. because the bicorn was a really very rare creature, and they were currently looking at its horn. Not only that, they could also see the traces of moonlight that were stored in the moonlight wand, even though its power had been used. This wand still had the remaining power of the moon in it. Jude realized that only Cordelia could meet the fairies in the game. They were really very rare, and no one could prove whether the information he was throwing out was true or not. In order to convince Barua, he told him that his information came from his father, but Jude did that because he felt that Barua would not believe him if he said that it was a gift from the Fairy Queen, so he did this because he had to. Jude hoped that his father could understand. He had also sent a letter about it to his father, because his father was someone who could overlook mistakes if there was a good reason behind it, just like now. Of all the plans he had, this was the best plan. Jude's story managed to convince the people there. Barua then said, because they were still not sure what exactly the purpose of the demonkin was, as previously planned, until additional knights from each family arrived, he asked them to stay at the inn. Barua then ended the meeting. Jude and Cordelia were then approached by Sylvia. Although a little late, Sylvia then thanked them for saving her. Cordelia said that it wasn't necessary. Sylvia then asked if Cordelia wouldn't mind if she heard more about the fairy story. Cordelia would of course tell her everything. Sylvia thanked her for that. Cordelia also asked Viola to come to her. Jude then left Cordelia with them. He now wanted to find Lucas, and he met him shortly after. Lucas then asked if he had made a decision. Jude thought that Lucas was impatient now, and that was good, so he planned to touch his weakness again. Jude said that he had already thought of the answer, although he had thought of it from yesterday. Rather than finding a way to cure his illness, he said that he was more touched that Lucas considered him an opponent that he recognized. Lucas was surprised to hear Jude's statement. Lucas's hidden setting that appears in the game is the fact that Lucas is a big fan of hero-themed fantasy novels, and the words that Jude just said came from the novel that Lucas liked the most, the words said by the main character's opponent in the Viltvein Saga novel. So when Jude spoke like this, Lucas could appreciate the atmosphere. When he became the hero he respected so much, Jude then shook Lucas's hand. He said that he couldn't wait to adventure north with him. The scene was then shown when Cordelia suddenly walked into Jude's room. Cordelia said that this was serious. Jude was confused by that. It was about going north with Lucas. Unlike Jude, who had a reason to cure his disease, Cordelia had no reason to go with them. Delia had even said that she had to go back home. Jude thought that something serious had happened. Jude then calmed her down, and told her to do as they had done last time. Everyone would understand. Cordelia was currently reluctant to do that again. Jude then said that if her disease could be cured in the north, he would hug her, lift her up, jump over the fence for her, look after her, whatever it was, he would do it all for her. So Jude begged Cordelia to act as good as possible to make the people who picked her up here come home again. Just thinking about it made Cordelia annoyed. 4 days had passed since the demon's hand attacked. This morning, the knights of the Crossbell family and Viscount Lang had arrived, and they left together with Sylvia and Viola. The parting was indeed sad, but they should be able to see them again after arriving at the destruction of Pleiades. And in the afternoon, Felix and the others began to leave one by one. Then in the end, all that was left was her, Jude and Lucas. The knights of the Bayer family and Chase should have arrived tomorrow morning. While writing the letter, Cordelia still seemed to feel reluctant about something. The next day, Cordelia didn't expect it when her own father came here. He was also with Jude's brother. Gale had heard about the story of the two of them. He didn't expect that after not seeing each other for a few days, Jude had become stronger. He also asked if he was okay. Jude said he was fine, and asked why they came here personally. Gale then whispered, because Count Chase wanted to personally come to pick up, they should at least send the successor of the Bayer family so that it was balanced, right? Count Chase then asked Jude about him defeating Demonkin with Cordelia. Jude confirmed. Together with Cordelia and Lucas, they managed to defeat Demonkin. It was also thanks to the magician from the Crimson Dawn Tower. Hearing this, Count Chase said that Jude was still weak because he could not defeat a Demonkin alone. He could not be calm if Jude was this weak. He then gave an item that could increase strength to Jude. Jude of course received it happily. Cordelia then told him to talk about it immediately. Jude then said that there was something he had to tell the two of them. The thing he said was about his trip to the north with Lucas. Count Chase pondered for a moment. Because the place was in the far north of the kingdom, the journey would definitely be very long. Even so, Jude said that this was a request conveyed directly by Lucas, and he thought about accepting it. They should also rearrange the escort troops. Jude's brother had no problem with that. But Cordelia then suddenly said that she also wanted to come along. Because she and Jude were an inseparable couple, Count Chase had no problem with it, but he was worried whether a weak person like Jude could protect Cordelia. Therefore he would prepare some things for him. Jude of course accepted it happily. When they were about to leave, Maya actually wanted to go together, but Jude said that the journey would be dangerous, so it was better for her not to come. Maya understood. She then handed over the object that Count Chase told her to give to him. Count Chase said that this was their new engagement ring. After that, Gale and Maya then returned to the Bayer residence. Delia then asked them to be ready. Before that, Jude said that he wanted to meet Lucas for a while, because they had important things to talk about. Jude then told Lucas about the witch's forest. Jude only said that the fairy queen said that there was a close connection between Cordelia's destiny and the witch's forest. So they both made a vow. If there was a chance to go north, they had to visit the forest. So they had to change their route. There would be many monsters in the witch's forest. So Lucas Guard said that they didn't recommend taking this route. Jude knew that it was dangerous. He just said that the fairy queen said that in the forest, there was the soul of a miserable witch who was imprisoned by evil beings, and the only one who could free her from that confinement was Cordelia, although it wasn't actually the fairy queen who told them. But there was actually something like that in the game. They will definitely meet many interesting mystical events there, although they can meet monsters like Bicorn there, but that is part of the experience. Cordelia also said that she was also impatient. As if she was in a hero story, Jude felt that Lucas was now hooked. They then agreed to change direction to the Witch's Forest. Witch's Forest was the name of an old Trafalgar forest located within the Trafalgar family's territory. Because there were so many monsters in this forest, not many people lived around this forest, and also because the road to the forest was damaged, horse-drawn carriages could not enter. Therefore from here on they decided to walk. Cordelia was surprised by Jude, because he had really brainwashed Lucas to make him think that this was an adventure, and Lucas was suspicious, but he trusted him even more. Cordelia wondered if Jude had planned this from the start, because when she thought about it, she felt that there was something strange. The strange tone that Jude always used when talking to Lucas and also his strange actions at that time. Everything seemed strange when he first suggested that they forge documents. Not only that, but how could he forge such perfect documents? If this was all planned based on her belief in that skill, don't tell me that Jude's real-life job at that time was a scammer. Cordelia was very surprised when it came to that conjecture. Jude knew what Cordelia was thinking just by looking at her face. He was an ordinary person who paid taxes on time and also followed all the rules. So he told Cordelia to stop thinking what he wasn't. Cordelia was surprised about Jude, who paid taxes, liked to get drunk and pay taxes, meaning he was someone who had worked. Cordelia guessed that Jude was older than her. Lucas felt that this was a little different from the adventure he had in mind. Of course it was because there were guards guarding them. Cordelia was also a little annoyed that the monsters were being hunted by all of them, because this could be her experience points. The guards then asked them to be vigilant, because the fog was thickening the more they entered the forest. Jude then took out a rope and tied it to Cordelia's waist. Cordelia was confused by that. Jude just said that they should not separate when their view was disturbed later. Lucas then also asked why Jude had tied the rope to Cordelia. Jude said that it was to keep watch, and offered if he wanted to be tied to the two of them too. Lucas then accepted the offer, and as they got deeper into the forest, the fog thickened. They were both confused when Jude suddenly stopped. Jude said that the soil had changed. The smell, shape, particle size and composition were different from the Trafalgar forest. And one more thing. Suddenly the atmosphere became completely silent. They were both surprised when they heard this, and then tried to call their guards. It was of course useless. They had now been transferred to another forest, an area completely separated from the outside world. Jude then said to Lucas that the real adventure had just begun. And as they got deeper into the forest, the fog suddenly began to thin. They then saw a skeleton lying in front. And after investigating, Jude said that this skeleton had been there for a long time, but still had the emblem from the guards of the Holy Cross. Lucas then asked if he meant the guards who hid in the shadows to guard this continent. Jude confirmed Lucas' question, and it seemed that several Holy Cross guards were trapped here. Lucas was a little worried to hear that. Jude then told him not to worry. They just needed to find the witch's seal and break the spell of this place. Cordelia then suddenly said that she wanted to bury the skeletons. The two of them certainly didn't mind, because they were the ones who sacrificed their lives to keep this continent safe. While they were digging, Cordelia suddenly found a wooden chest, and when she opened it, the chest contained a book and a scroll of paper. It seemed that this scroll was a scroll of spell paper containing a way to kill demons, and the book contained divine martial arts. Looking at the markings on the wooden chest, it seemed that they were fighting with the demon that held the witch's soul. They then divided the things, with Cordelia taking the spell scroll, while Jude and Lucas would take the book on divine martial arts. Jude hoped that they could finally calm down after being buried. A voice suddenly entered Cordelia's head. The voice called Cordelia her child and told her to come to her. Cordelia knew that this was not her imagination. Jude was confused at Cordelia's state. Cordelia said that a voice was calling her, and told her to go to a dense forest that had visible roots. That's where they would find the source of the voice.